The Justice Department says it will continue to release more of the Epstein files on a rolling basis, blaming any delays on releasing all of the files on the time-consuming process of obscuring victims' names and other identifying information.
But just the sheer amount of people with insane amounts of money that are attached to them. What a crazy operation they were running. What a crazy thing. To have a bunch of people fly them out to an island that somehow or another you own. Have you ever seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
As the latest Epstein files went public, Joe Rogan didn't hold back on his podcast at all. He zeroed in on something that instantly raised eyebrows. According to Rogan, the timing says everything. The second these documents started dropping, powerful figures went silent, vanished from public view, or were suddenly out of the country with no clear reason.
People that are in the position to actually know the people's names on the list, those people are probably in trouble.
Yeah.
Because that's a crazy piece of information to have.
Look.
No one's been tried. No one's been brought. No one's been discussed. We know who went there. We know flight logs. No one talks about anything. There's no effort to prosecute. There's no effort to... And then you have Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in jail for speaking to who?
Rogan questioned why this same pattern shows up every time uncomfortable information hits daylight. These claims exploded online after the U.S. Department of Justice released thousands of new documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein, pushing the story back into full chaos mode. The files include photos, testimony summaries, and government records linked to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence. This release was forced by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a law designed to pressure the government into opening all remaining unclassified material. Even so, large sections are still heavily blacked out. Transparency groups say the public is only getting fragments of the real story. Things got even more suspicious when reporters noticed at least 16 files suddenly vanished from the DOJ website. One of those reportedly included a photo involving President Donald Trump, which instantly set social media on fire.
Photo that included an image of President Trump appears to have been removed from the Justice Department's Epstein Files website shortly after it was published. The image was part of a new batch of files related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation published Friday. The file, numbered 468, was missing as of Saturday at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time, with the site skipping from 467 to 469.
You can see in that photo, there's photographs of women. And so we learned after releasing that photograph that there were concerns about those women and the fact that we had put that photo up. So we pulled that photo down. It has nothing to do with President Trump. We're still investigating that photo. The photo will go back up, and the only question is whether there will be redactions on the photo.
Many of the files have redactions, some of which appear to be applied inconsistently. Content is redacted in some instances, but not others. In some cases, whole pages and even whole documents are redacted, as my colleague Jake Tapper points out here.
It's just 100 pages of redaction. That's the transparency we're getting here.
What the Justice Department told Congress in a letter is that it believes it can black out information to protect victims, despite a law that required all files to be released and allowing for defined categories to protect the victims. The Justice Department didn't meet a 30-day congressionally imposed deadline requiring it to release all the documents.
We are complying with the statute. We will continue to comply with the statute. And if by complying with the statute, we don't produce everything on Friday, we produce things next week and the week after, that's still compliance with the statute.
President Trump was headed down here to Palm Beach as these files were released. He's said before that he got to know Epstein as part of the social circle in this wealthy enclave. The Trump administration has lost plenty of credibility when it comes to the handling of these documents, and the missing files and redacted information are only likely to add fuel to public suspicion that the government is hiding information about Epstein. Analysis by CNN also found that Trump's name and appearance were limited, while there appears to be a heavy dose of former President Bill Clinton, which a Clinton spokesperson said amounted to the Trump administration, quote, shielding themselves from what comes next or from what they'll try and hide forever.
Rogan says that kind of thing screams red flag. If files are disappearing after release, someone is clearly nervous. And despite all the redactions, some serious facts still slipped through. One document confirms the FBI was warned about Epstein years before his first arrest in 1996. Survivor Maria Farmer contacted the FBI with serious allegations, according to the files, but no meaningful action followed at the time.
It's a big triumph to finally get some documents, and one of the documents we received and were able to pull out very quickly was the confirmation that Maria actually did this report in 1996, just as she's been saying for a very long time. So that's triumphant, but it's also tragic, because to have to wait 30 years to have some kind of justice and accountability is truly tragic. I certainly think there's much more to this story than was acknowledged previously. And that's why we're delighted that at least some of the files have been released. Not all of the files, approximately half is what we've been told. But there's many in those files, and I've just been scouring them very quickly myself, that already are in the public domain. They released all the FOIA requests, all the FBI vault that we already knew about. But just to double back 1 minute for what happened with Maria, if I may. What happened with Maria, she reported Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, but she also reported his child pornography. And that is another terrible illegality. And that's something that the government failed to even address in their efforts to prosecute either Epstein or Maxwell. And that is truly tragic.
After the release, Farmer spoke publicly and said she finally felt heard. She said she feels redeemed, calling it one of the best days of my life, a powerful moment after years of silence. The files also include newly released grand jury transcripts. These describe how investigators interviewed multiple young victims and women years ago. The testimony shows how long these patterns continued and how many chances authorities had to step in sooner. So why didn't it happen? Some people online speculate Epstein may have been connected to intelligence operations used to gather leverage on powerful figures. Rogan addressed these claims carefully, sharing his own speculation while making clear they remain unproven theories.
Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy who could move money around.
Right.
He definitely...
Good at laundering money.
The moving money around stuff was very weird because he had money through no way that anybody could ever explain.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of money through no way that nobody could ever explain. Which, you know, if you're state-funded, you're funded by Israel, and Israel's funded by America, and, you know, there's also NGOs and nonprofits, and there's ways to move money around where you can give this guy money.
Yeah.
So he was like... Weinstein, who is an economist, right? Weinstein's a legitimate mathematician.
Eric?
Yeah. So when Eric met him, his first inclination was he was a fraud.
He's a construct.
Yeah, a construct. And did he tell you the whole story about the girl sitting on his lap?
Yep.
So Epstein, while he's meeting with Eric Weinstein for the first time, has a beautiful girl sitting on his lap, and a woman, I shouldn't say girl. He said she was like in her 20s, and she's sitting on his lap, and he's bouncing around. So they're juggling around while
he's asking math questions.
Yeah, talking serious. So he was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds, and I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those
100%.
guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Nothing's free.
And they probably felt like they were rock stars because they get to hang out with the intellectual elite on an island with a guy who's just a billionaire philanthropist who's eccentric, who just loves women. He's a professed bachelor. And it all seemed too good to be true.
It's so true.
Because it was.
Yeah.
So I think he was an asset. Whether or not it was for the Mossad strictly or Israel strictly or the United States strictly, whether it was a CIA thing, I don't know. But I think it was probably a part of a blackmail compromise effort.
Photos released alongside the documents are now spreading fast online. Many were taken from Epstein's properties during FBI searches. Some images are heavily redacted, but recognizable faces remain visible. Former President Bill Clinton appears in multiple photos. One shows him swimming with Ghislaine Maxwell. Another shows him in a hot tub with a woman whose face is blacked out. Clinton has not been charged or formally accused in the Epstein case. Rogan also pointed out that years ago, he publicly criticized Clinton's past behavior and associations, long before Epstein's death. Those old comments are now resurfacing, adding even more fuel to the public debate and raising fresh questions people can't ignore.
Your problems with the Clinton Foundation, it's not even around anymore. They shut it down. It's a dark legion. And meanwhile, she's doing all this Me Too talk. Her husband's a goddamn predator.
Yeah.
He's been a predator forever.
Clinton has said in the past that he cut ties with Epstein long before Epstein's legal troubles became public. That claim has been repeated many times, but critics argue the timeline doesn't fully line up, and that's where the doubts keep coming back. Another famous name tied to Epstein that people online keep pointing to is billionaire Bill Gates.
House Oversight Democrats released new photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. The images include a Ukrainian passport, Bill Gates posing with a woman whose face was redacted, a screenshot of texts discussing the sending of girls, and a photo of a foot bearing a quote from Lolita.
Gates has publicly acknowledged past meetings with Epstein and has said he regrets those interactions, but many believe the media softened how much attention that connection received. As more documents are expected to drop in the coming weeks, Joe Rogan says his theories about what was happening behind the scenes now feel harder to dismiss. Rogan recently explained that having well-known, respected names around Epstein created a false sense of safety. If presidents and major public figures were present, others assumed everything was legitimate. That atmosphere lowered people's guard. Rogan believes some attendees thought they were simply networking or relaxing among elites without realizing that personal information could be quietly documented. He said some people may not have understood the situation at all, while others may have noticed warning signs and chose to ignore them. Either way, Rogan argues that power and reputation played a huge role in keeping people comfortable.
They all thought that it was this lovely exchange of powerful people and brilliant people, and then they were just getting dirt on all of them. Guys cheating on their wives, guys, whether knowingly or unknowingly, having sex with underage girls.
Everybody
and
wants to be.
Maybe some guys, that was their thing.
Sure.
Because it seemed like with Epstein, that was his thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think too. I don't think there's any evidence to either. I think it's all been. I don't think there was collected with that plea deal, and I don't think there's any list that's going to point to. There's no smoking gun. That's
I don't know about that.
I think it's all been, taken care of. I think that it's. I think you could open up every file.
But that's the truth. Why did they have all those files? Why did they parade around with these binders?
Because
and
a
say,
lot of.
Do you remember those photo ops that they said? Like, look, they did like a thing. We have the Epstein files right here, and they had binders. Like, what kind of political theater is that? If you don't really have the Epstein files, like, what is
theater. That? And what I mean by that is, I think, like, if they are keeping something quiet, it's because it's video of underage girls, or it's video of the victims who don't want that to be out there. And the Justice Department cannot make that public. They cannot bring that to Congress. That's all sealed for their privacy, right?
Well, that is the argument. But then they're saying now that there are no files. They're saying there's no video.
I believe that. Don't you?
I don't know. I think they have video. I think if you've got an island and you want compromise on people, you can't just have hearsay.
According to Rogan, plea deals often shut investigations down completely. Once a deal is reached, evidence gathering can stop, and whatever existed may never see daylight. He pointed out that Epstein's sentence gave him unusually broad freedom, which raised serious questions about influence and connections.
When you have a plea deal, nobody is collecting any evidence. You understand? Right. So it's not like we're going to collect evidence. No. The part of the plea deal is this investigation is over. You plead, you do your time in this jail where you can go out and play golf during the day, but you have to come back at night.
He was under home arrest. He would only have to go there like a couple days a week.
Right. He'd have to go to the county jail in Palm Beach
during
the day. Right. So that's what I'm saying is I think all that shit was
he did like weekends. I think he did like weekends in the jail. I'm not kidding.
Money,
I think they allowed him to work.
Money talks, baby.
It's not just money talks, it's influence. And the guy who's the arresting sheriff was told this guy was intelligent. Yeah, that's what he was told. So I would assume that that guy's telling the truth because he's a sheriff. He's got no reason to lie, or whoever he was.
Right.
But I think there's a lot of super powerful people that are very, very, very wealthy, and they have the ability to say whether or not things get out.
Rogan has repeatedly questioned how critical evidence and so-called client lists connected to Epstein and even other major figures seem to vanish. He says it's hard to ignore how often prominent celebrities are linked, yet full transparency never follows. Rogan explained this as part of a broader pattern. Powerful individuals value privacy, but often end up in controlled environments. Because high-profile people can't move freely, they rely on trusted intermediaries who promise discretion and protection. Epstein positioned himself as exactly that kind of gatekeeper.
You get rich, powerful people. So here's the thing that happens with rich, powerful people. They can't go anywhere, right? If you're, like, say, a Jeff Bezos type or someone who's like an Elon Musk type. Let's just, and I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm just saying at that caliber of celebrity and that caliber of prominence, you can't go anywhere. If you're Bill Clinton back in the 80s or the 90s, whatever it was, you can't go party. You know, everybody knows who you are. You got to be protected, right? But you want these experiences. And so you have these guys, like a Jeffrey Epstein type guy, who works with the elite of the elite clientele. It's all movie stars, big time politicians, world leaders, scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and they all meet together and have fascinating conversations and cocktails, and there's beautiful girls everywhere. Of course. What a great idea.
Right.
And if you're naive and you don't understand honeypots.
Here's the quote from Maria Farmer, who was one of the accusers from what was inside the house in New York.
Okay, she said, there were monitors inside this cabinet. I looked on the cameras and I saw toilet, bed, toilet. She said, visibly spooked. Like, I'm never going to use the restroom here and I'm never going to sleep here. You know what I mean? It was very obvious that they were like monitoring private moments. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Maria Farmer was the one who worked at Epstein's office in New York, I think.
And this was the house, Jamie?
Yeah, I was looking up stuff on the house. That was like what they
I wonder
found.
if the house still has fucking cameras in it somewhere that they haven't found yet.
They definitely, don't know.
Yeah, you'd have to scan the out of that house. You'd have to take the walls apart. There's probably listening devices inside the walls. Like, who knows? If this was like really an intelligence operation, they probably had that house fully wired.
From an intelligence perspective, Rogan says the setup made sense. If someone wanted leverage over decision makers, creating spaces where people relaxed and let their guard down would be an effective strategy.
I gotta think, man, if a guy like that is running these kind of parties with all these rich and powerful people, how many different worldwide decisions can be manipulated because of these people and the compromises you have on them?
Right.
It's really a brilliant thing to do.
Yeah.
From an intelligence perspective.
Now, with images from the files spreading online, some believe the fallout could be serious for well-known names. That belief intensified when certain files were briefly removed from public access, sparking claims of damage control at the highest levels. During a recent interview, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche was asked directly why those files were taken down and whether a judge ordered it. Blanche said the files were removed after concerns were raised about photos involving women, and he insisted the move had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Blanche stated that images of Trump with Epstein had already been public for years and called the idea that the DOJ acted to protect Trump laughable, pushing back hard against the accusations.
The absurdity of us pulling down a photo, a single photo, because President Trump was in it, is laughable. And the fact that everybody's trying to act like that's the case is a reflection of their true motivation. But the reality is anybody, any victim's lawyers, any victim rights group can reach out to us and say, hey, Department of Justice, there's a document, there's a photo, there's something within the Epstein files that identifies me, and we will then, of course, pull that off and investigate it.
Are you saying that one or more of the women in one of the photos or several of the photos is a victim or a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein, and that's why you took those files down, and will they be put back up?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We, of course, if we knew that, if we believed that that photograph contained a survivor, we wouldn't have put it up in the first place without redacting the faces. But notwithstanding what we believe, we don't have perfect information. And so when we hear from victims' rights groups about this type of photograph, we pull it down and investigate. We're still investigating that photo. The photo will go back up, and the only question is whether there will be redactions on the photo. And of course, if there are survivors in any of the photos, we will redact them as Congress expects us to do, as President Trump expects us to do, and as the Attorney General and Director Patel have directed the department to do.
However, critics were not buying it at all. Commentators quickly pointed out that Blanche never clearly explained why the files vanished in the first place, only that they were removed after concerns were raised. People also highlighted that Blanche previously served as Donald Trump's personal criminal defense attorney, which immediately sparked concerns about potential conflicts of interest. That detail alone made many observers even more skeptical about the explanation being offered. The Epstein story has never been simple, and investigative journalist Whitney Webb says that is completely by design. According to Webb, the scandal pulls in powerful figures from both political parties, which helps explain why no one in Washington seems eager to fully open the books. She argues that public image panic plays a huge role. Politicians worry about backlash, reputation damage, and what the full truth might expose. Instead of addressing the issue head-on, leadership has spent months delaying, redirecting attention, or hoping the entire story quietly fades away.
That Leslie Wexner has never been investigated for his role in the Epstein scandal is absolutely bonkers. Do what you can to extricate yourself and your family from this power structure that is predatory, it's evil, it kids. The music industry had become tied up with the private prison industry. An asset is definitely fair to say, at the very least. If they want to blackmail you or know something about you, they just access what Palantir sucked up about you.
Like, what are we
Well, Epstein was interested in Chomsky for AI purposes.
If journalists did at all their jobs, every 4 sentences that you say should be 4 weeks of news coverage doing in-depth education of the American public. Are you ever worried about drawing attention for the kind of research and reporting that you do?
In the 2024 campaign, there was a lot of signaling, not just from Trump, but from, J.D. Vance and some of these other figures, some of Trump's children, on social media, and I believe also interviews, basically promising the release of Epstein documents if Trump were to be elected. And this is also true of things that were stated by the current FBI director and FBI deputy director. And, a few months before things really exploded with Trump getting kind of feisty on his social media posts, we had, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and sort of basically come out and say Epstein definitely killed himself and all this stuff. And then Pam Bondi, kind of followed suit. And then they released this video that has a minute missing, which obviously, is going to make people that think Epstein didn't kill himself, or at least didn't kill himself without help from the outside. It's not going to put any conspiracies to rest if there's like a minute plus missing, and then the metadata shows that the video was edited. And so there's been all this backpedaling, but it's very bizarre that they would mishandle this so extensively. I mean, maybe they thought that the base didn't really care that much, or that they could distract them.
Webb says this behavior looks intentional. In her view, if officials were trying to bury something serious, their actions would look exactly like this. She believes the files may contain information that is embarrassing at best and deeply damaging at worst, not just for Trump, but for people in his political orbit as well. That could explain why promised disclosures still haven't fully happened.
I think now they're trying to use the distraction or develop new distractions, as soon as this kind of boiled over and really kind of splintered and angered a large segment of Trump's base. There were releases of, documents on the MLK assassination, and Tulsi Gabbard has now been releasing stuff on Russiagate, and Trump is putting all the stuff like AI videos of Obama getting arrested. So now it's kind of trying to shift gears and get the base riled up about something else and be like, please forget about the Jeffrey Epstein case. But it's kind of it's really bizarre, particularly the most bizarre of it all would be Trump's own response. He obviously fails to understand how a large segment of his base feels about this case by trying to, wash it away and call it a Democrat-invented hoax. Yeah, so, my opinion generally is that some figures in the Trump administration were kind of chosen as a PR move and that they're not actually in charge of what they're nominally in charge of. So like Pete Hegseth, head of the Pentagon, he's kind of a Fox and Friends, he's a TV show host. And the deputy director of the Pentagon, Steve Feinberg of Cerberus Capital, is most likely the person actually running the Pentagon, not Hegseth, in my opinion. And I think that's true also for RFK Jr. in charge of HHS. I don't really think he's running. He's just kind of this figure that connected with Trump's base, particularly during the COVID era, and made them think reforms would come. And those reforms haven't really come, but he's kind of there to give the impression that things have changed. But the person behind him, the deputy secretary, is Jim O'Neill, who's a career affiliate of Peter Thiel, who's also the power behind J.D. Vance and, the man that made Palantir what it is. And so, I think it's just a way of sort of masking the people that are actually running stuff. And I think that's probably true, too, of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who were basically out there. They were making the rounds on podcasts and were making these connections and building trust and relationships with the public in Trump space. But it seems like they're not actually running anything, in my opinion. They're kind of figureheads in a way, and they're willing figureheads.
Every delay only adds more suspicion and fuels public distrust. Court records from earlier cases also revealed that Epstein had acted as an FBI informant during part of this period. If accurate, that raises serious questions about who knew what, who looked the other way, and how deep the connections really went. This is where the story gets even murkier. When intelligence ties, political power, and missing documents all collide, people naturally start asking tougher questions. So what do you think is really going on here? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let the debate speak for itself.